Guys, I'm sweating in here. This room is hotter than any room in the building. But here we are. So, Pacific expansion and the road to Pearl Harbor. Japan is far across the world, right? Europe isn't really worried about Japan because they're like a whole different place. But Japan is a superpower in Asia, and they have the same concepts of supremacy and nativism that Hitler has, that the US has. They just have it on Japanese versus other Asian countries. So Japan believes in Japan for the Japanese. Japan believes that Japanese are supreme. They are the best Asians in the world, and that other Asian denominations are lower than them. And so if you want to be the best, you have to be Japanese. And other denominations of Asians, especially Chinese people, Korean people, are just not as good. So Japan is a powerhouse at this point. They are one of the only countries that industrialized during the Industrial Revolution. Remember, China's addicted to opium. The others are all colonized. So Japan has this holding over there in the Pacific that a lot of other people or other countries can't defend against. So in 1931, Japan decides they're going to invade Manchuria, which is on mainland Asia, mainland China. It's not part of China at the time. It's like its own little subsect. But so they invade Manchuria in 1931, and some of the biggest Japanese companies of the time who are working for Japanese military, Nissan, Mitsubishi, Mitsui, they're going to build their factories over in Manchuria. And they're going to do this by kicking out the Chinese people in Manchuria who live there so that they can make more room for the Japanese people who are coming to work in their factories. And I do want to point out that it is not uncommon for most well-known companies today to have worked with the governments of Germany, of the United States during the war to make war materials. Volkswagen, Bayer Medicine in Germany, Ford, Jeep in America. This is pretty common practice. So Japan invades Manchuria and they take over in 1931. Then in 1937, Japan decides, you know what? Hitler's doing his thing, Mussolini's doing his thing. Let us also do our thing. They're going to invade China fully. And they invade China and start a war. And they claim over 10 million Chinese lives during this war, which starts with the invasion of Beijing, and they continue on into Shanghai. And I don't want it to sound like the Chinese and the people laid down and gave up, but Japan is doing something that we haven't seen before. They are targeting civilians. They are purposely targeting civilians by bombing cities and towns in China. And again, this is before the Battle of Britain. This is before Hitler's really doing it. Hitler hasn't even invaded Poland yet. And Japan is bombing civilian towns. There is record proof of this. One town Japan bombs, they wipe out an entire railway station. There's a very famous picture of a baby sitting on the railway tracks crying. He's the only survivor. I think it's in Shanghai. Shanghai falls to Japan in November after a 3-month battle. They really fought back. They really tried hard. And they do okay. Japan has 40,000 soldiers killed or wounded in action. China has about 270,000 killed or wounded. So Japan, unfortunately, is very angry about their 40,000 because, again, they think that they're superior, so they shouldn't have had any killed or wounded. How dare an inferior race or an inferior group of people kill any of their soldiers? So this pushes the Japanese aggression even further, and they continue their drive into China, attacking anything and anyone they can find. They are not only just attacking them with their weapons, but they start handing out opium so the Chinese will not fight back. They will just start throwing bodies into garbage dumps instead of burying them. They do all sorts of things that we are today would be called crimes against humanity and atrocities against humanity. But this is all pre-Hitler, pre-concentration camps in Germany. On December 13th, 1937, Japan storms into Nanking with the orders to commit murder. This event is known as the Rape of Nanking, and it lasts for 3 weeks, where the Japanese military attack and commit atrocities against the Chinese people living in Nanking. And we're talking like horrific atrocities here. It's not just like, oh, they killed them. They killed them in the most horrific ways you could imagine. And it's a massacre, it's a slaughter. They behead people. They impale babies on bayonets. They will put babies into pots of boiling water while they're still alive. They starve people to death. They would burn them or bury them alive. And of course, they also, it's called the rape of Nanking. They raped women anywhere, or children from ages 12 to 18, and then women from 18 to 80. Usually it was a multiple person situation. It wasn't just one-on-one. It was usually multiple men on one woman. And if the woman was not killed after that, or the child was not killed after that, they would be forced into sexual slavery. The Japanese men made sex slaves of 200,000 Korean and Chinese women. 80% of them are not even full-grown women yet. They're 14 to 18 years old. And they are imprisoned in brothels, and they are treated as medical necessities, military supplies, and war supplies. That is how they are recorded in their books in the Japanese military records. Japan also has this research unit that they form in Manchuria. It's called Unit 731, and it is an organization that they claim is being used to research diseases and the impact of disease on people, which is true. But when you do research in disease and impacts, you do it on people who already have that disease. And what Japan does is that they purposely infect the Chinese people with these diseases. They infect them with the bubonic plague, cholera. Good afternoon. Sorry about that. The announcements, which means it's almost time to wrap this up. So the Unit 731 is going to infect the Chinese people with diseases like bubonic plague, cholera, tuberculosis, and they are purposely going to do this so that they can test the findings on how these different diseases affect people, and then supposedly use them to develop new ways to help people survive them. But the people they're trying to help survive are the Japanese people, and this is incredibly unethical in and of itself, but so many Chinese people die because they've been purposely infected with these diseases, specifically by the Japanese. So Japan is wreaking havoc in the Pacific, and again, nobody's really paying attention to them. People are paying attention to Hitler, but this is still pre-Hitler, really. This is still pre-invasion of Poland, pre-concentration camps. This is all of World War II, really. And the U.S. is working with Japan in terms of economics at this point. So the U.S. does know what's going on in Japan, and it's not so much that the atrocities are bothering the U.S., it is the fact that Japan wants to control the Pacific, and we have some interest in the Pacific that we don't want Japan to take from us, right? We have the Philippines, we've got Guam. We don't want Japan messing with those, and they're already invading the Philippines, so we need to be real careful. So we decide that we need to deal with Japan, and especially once the Nazis have taken over Europe and all of the former European colonies are now open to Japan as well, we really need to step in and do this. So we are going to do what any good country does when a foreign country invades or attempts to invade their area. We're going to tell them not to. And we're going to say, how dare you do this? You need to stop, or we're going to stop trading with you. Japan says, okay. So we give Japan two options. We can stop selling them oil and rubber and the other resources that they need to keep their military supplies running, or Japan can return to Japan and return all of their taken territory. Japan says, thanks, we're going to just deal with your embargo, and they'll just turn to Dutch Indochina for oil because, again, now that all the European colonies are under Nazi control and the Japanese and the Germans have an alliance, Japan can get that stuff from anywhere. They don't need it from us. So we stop Japan by embargoing their oil, but it really doesn't do anything for us except do what appeasement did for Hitler, which just lets Japan continue to do what they want while we sit back and say, no, don't, please stop.